Well, welcome to the continuation of Landlord Debt Advisory Week, coming to you from Belfast and powered by our partner in this area, Landlord Debt Advisory. And I'm joined now by Robert Wilson, who is a client of the group of companies. And Robert, I don't think we talk about debt enough, and I want to commend you very much for coming on camera to talk about a situation that you found yourself in. You are a commercial portfolio landlord yourself, but you know, debt can affect people in many, many different ways. Tell us your story.
Well, I had a two-sided problem. My biggest issue was that I have 28 commercial tenants, and all of a sudden we were faced with 50% vacancies. And while that was happening, we worked awfully hard to sort that out, and we sorted that out, and we survived that awful time around 2012, when the recession was really biting. But the issue that I really needed help with, and I left it too long, really, I left it longer than I should have, was my own home. So all of a sudden, you know, I'd paid sort of 700,000 quid for a house, put some money down on it, and I had £490,000 worth of debt, which I'd been able to service when the revenues were coming in from my commercial portfolio. But all of a sudden that was drying up. And I have a wife and two small kids at the time, and all of a sudden I'm facing a position where I'm in a house with debt, and I can't afford to be there, and I can't afford to service the debt.
Well, you know, getting into a situation like that, I can only imagine the stress you were under. How did you kind of deal with that stress? Were you sort of semi in denial about your situation, or just burying your head in the sand, or just hoping that something might change that would enable you to stay in your home?
Well, you know, you deal with the priorities, and the priorities at the time were keep the commercial portfolio alive, hold on to all the commercial properties, restructure, relet, and so on. And I did that, and we did a good job. When you have a debt hanging over you, it's ridiculous to bury your head in the sand. The only thing that's of any merit is to grab the problem and deal with it. Now, we were stressed. It was there. My wife and I were aware of it. It affected our sleep. It affected our daytime.
And your health.
And it probably did. It certainly affected our ability to relax. So what I did was I went to see my solicitor for a chat, because you know, he's a trusted friend, and he suggested Negative Equity UK, and so I called them, and actually that's when the pain started to ease, because as soon as I called them, the conversation seemed simple. The girl that we talked to, a lovely girl, asked me a few questions, put me at ease, and actually it started to feel like a little bit of healing. But above all, I was doing something about it. Yeah,
you were taking positive action.
Yeah, so I suddenly felt, I mean, the problem was still there, but I suddenly felt that I was empowered because I was doing something about it, and I felt as if anybody was going to help me, it would be these guys.
That must have been very reassuring when you had that initial conversation. But how did then the company actually help you get out of this horrendous situation that you found yourself in?
Well, they asked me a few questions. I gave them honest, truthful answers. I gave them the paperwork that they needed. And they started to negotiate on my behalf. But they did something else. They reassured me, and they kept me informed about what they were doing. And that was enormously important for me, because I'd been in the dark, and all of a sudden they were telling me what they were doing, how they were doing it, and how it could result. And it wasn't always going to be a great result. I mean, these things, it's a negotiation. These things can go one way or the other. But it got better and better, and we started to relax a bit more, and they sorted it out. So they were able to deal with almost £500,000 worth of debt, and we got rid of it for a very small amount of money, and we got rid of it in a very reasonable timescale, less than a year, I believe. And it felt like, it sort of felt hard to believe. We have a banker in the family, and I confided in him as to what had happened, and he couldn't believe what they'd achieved for us. So
well, that's fantastic. So you've been able to move on from this very challenging situation. You've kept your commercial portfolio, and I believe you've got one other buy-to-let property. Have you been able to kind of move forward okay from that situation?
yeah, we've got a new home, we've got a new life, we've got kids growing up now in some sort of financial security. We love what happened, because it just took us out of the darkness into the light. It was like, it was just the thing we needed to give us our lives back. So I sort of feel as if I owe my solicitor a beer, but I owe a lot more to Negative Equity UK, because, you know, that's what we think about now. When we can afford to go on holiday, we sort of go, you know, we think, well, that was a very good decision.
I know in times of stress, sometimes, and I'm speaking from personal experience myself, sometimes somebody comes to your aid and it almost feels like they're your guardian angel, and that they were just the right person at the right time to come and assist you in your darkest hour. Sounds like that's how you feel about the company.
Yeah, it is. You know, there's so many people that call you during the day if you're at home, and they promise you this, that, and the other thing. So it's I think the nation is sceptical about companies that promise that, this, that, and the other thing. And that's why I thought it was really important to come on here, because I went for professional guidance from my solicitor. I didn't want to be dealing with people who would rip me off. And he pointed me to Negative Equity UK. And from the moment I called them, actually, the healing started, and they fixed it with me. And actually, what they do is quite interesting, because they teach you how to deal with the situation, as well as doing a lot of work in the background. And they are a big room full of nice people, which really helps.
Fantastic. So just to clarify again, that Negative Equity UK is part of the group, the Fairfield Capital Group, and they offer this same service to landlords as well, a very specialist service to landlords. So just as we kind of close it out here, what advice would you give to somebody who is, you know, really struggling with debt, whether it be a landlord or a homeowner? What advice would you give them? Because I think one of the things I picked up on from our interview is that you took action quite quickly. You didn't let it get worse and worse and worse.
Well, I mean, you have to do it to save your own life. What's the point in struggling with anything? Find an expert in whatever it is. I mean, if you had a burst pipe, you'd get a plumber. So if you have a debt problem and you ignore it, it's not going to go away. The simple thing to do is find somebody who has a strong reputation, strong track record, call them immediately, and have that conversation, get the process moving, get the file opened. And actually, time is of the essence in these things. The lending institutions say that, the banks say that, the legal people say that. Get on with it, move quickly, because these solutions will not be around forever. It's important to get in and get the best advice early.
I agree with you, and the earlier that you do get debt advice, the more options there are to you. The later you leave it, then there's going to be less solutions. So, Robert, I really want again to say thank you for having the courage to come and talk on camera about your debt situation. Do you think that this topic, you know, we do know it is a little bit stigmatized. Do you think that there should be more coverage of these kind of issues that people face, and also, of course, the solutions that are out there for them?
The more information that's available to people, the better. I think, I don't know how regulated this industry is, but if you find a good provider and you can see or talk to people who've had good service, I mean, why wouldn't you take that step? So I would say, you know, have a chat with the professionals and just get on with it, because to suffer alone is lunacy.
No, I agree. And we should point out that Landlord Debt Advisory Fairfield Capital Group is in fact regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority and I believe is the only company in the UK that is regulated to undertake this very specialist kind of work. So thank you for joining me here, Robert. Good luck with everything that you do in the future in your property world, and do stay tuned to Landlord Debt Advisory Week here on Property Tribes. If you're watching on YouTube, I invite you to click across to propertytribes.com, join our discussions there, and also push for notifications. We'll continue with Landlord Debt Advisory Week tomorrow, so join me there.